One of the things I think that has confused us so very, very much is what I call a yes and no, and sometimes message. You say, what do you mean a yes and no, and sometimes message? You know, in 2 Corinthians 1:17, Paul is writing to the Corinthians, and he says something that's so incredible. I'm telling you, this is a life changer if we're willing to accept what he's saying here. Paul says, so do I plan according to the flesh that with me there should be yes, yes, and no, no? Now, that's kind of interesting. That starts off with a very interesting question. How many times have you heard somebody preach about the promise of God? And it's like, yes, sometimes, but no, sometimes. So you're like, well, then really I still don't have anything to operate faith on because how do I know if this is a yes moment with God? How do I know if this is a no moment with God? But he goes on and explains this. He says, but as God is faithful, our word to you was not yes and no. Now, I got to tell you, my first several years in Christianity, I heard yes messages, and they were usually in the process of teaching me about a yes message. They would say, but sometimes it's going to be no. And by sometimes, they meant all the time, unless God intervene in some unusually supernatural way. Well, Jesus is our model. Jesus is the one we look to understand not only what we have, but what we can do in this life. I mean, when Jesus raised the dead, he didn't ever one time pray and say, God, is it your will to raise the dead? When Jesus opened blind eyes, he did not one time say before he did it, Father, is it your will this time? Is this a yes moment or is this a no moment?